With the success of the most recent dinosaur zoo, many different and new projects lay on the horizon as well. Word had already spread that the money holders were working on something big and would open a park with attractions and sights never experienced before. But that was still in the current makings. For now, the next project would focus on something else, but was nevertheless very special too. During the creation of the last prehistoric zoo, the scientists went wild with their DNA splicing and artificial creations. Many insane-looking creatures were brought to life, but among those were some prehistoric creatures that were not dinosaurs in fact, but mammals like the mammoth or the woolly rhino. These animals have become giant successes too, and they gave one of the higher-ups the idea to create a prehistoric park with ancient creatures that weren't dinosaurs. Though indeed the park would be a lot smaller than the main prehistoric zoo, and the scientists had not been able to create as many prehistoric creatures there were in dinosaurs, there were a lot more than you might think. A few had already been shown off to the world, including the mammoth, the rhinos, and the Kelenken. And so many were excited to think about the potential of creatures that would be on display from the times even before the dinosaurs roamed the earth to afterward. The first drafts had been laid out for the park, and this smaller one would be built near a calm coastal area which was easy to reach via the monorail. The opening lane had been placed, and immediately to people's left side when they entered would be the prehistoric village, with all its commonly known forms of entertainment, including the gift shop, restaurants, arcades, bowling alleys, and more. But the park's architects this time wanted the people to immediately enjoy some of the ancient creatures already when they entered, so on the opposite side were the first outlines for the animal zones created. Now people of course still needed to do some shopping and get income going for the park, so the higher-ups wanted to make sure that the animals here would not be the star attraction, so that both the attention given to the shopping area and the nearby animals was in balance. And so, for the first creature to be brought over to this prehistoric park was the Diplodocus. It was an animal shown in a lot of references when talking about evolution throughout the ages. In video format, it was often used to transition from the sea creatures to those on land. But this was simply the case because the Diplodocus was an amphibian. Nevertheless, the well-known image, most commonly noted by its unique shaped head, made it a perfect first attraction to the park. The Diplodocus were pretty fragile creatures, an attribute that they shared with other, more modern amphibians as well. They did not have any defensive mechanisms, and would therefore lay still in the ground to hide, which they were experts at due to their flat build, or head into the water, where they would burrow themselves into the sand as well, and become pretty much invisible. They were very large compared to the amphibians we know today, and could become bigger than 1 meter. But compared to some of the other animals that would be featured in the park, they were relatively small, and therefore multiple Diplodocus were brought over. The audience reception for the animals was great, since they were animals that had not been on display yet in the previous zoos and safari parks. Now, in order to please these creatures, their zone would have to consist of a swamp-like area with lots of shade, plenty of water and tall grass where they could feel safe. Now the tall grass did make it to where they were difficult to spot sometimes for the audience, but from time to time they could be lucky and witness one of the Diplodocus laying on one of the rocks to dry a bit in the sun. When they were unlucky, the animals would indeed be in the water and be nearly invisible. But nevertheless, the first edition was a big hit, and the people were very excited for what would come next. And what would come next was pretty spectacular. The higher-ups wanted to start off with something gentle, something fluffy and cute, as this would still be initiated within the vicinity of the shopping area. In the future, there would be various creepy crawlers added as well, but they did not want them positioned near the entrance, since it was not the intent to creep out any visitors while they were having a Brontosaurus burger at the nearby restaurant. Actually, the flat nature of the Diplodocus' head made it to where they would serve triangular-shaped Diplodocus pancakes nearby that were a great hit with the kids. But for the next animal that would be added, they created the Megatherium. As the name would suggest, this creature was enormous and comparable to an elephant in modern day. But instead, it was a fluffy mammal that was part of the sloth family. Therefore, despite its size, it was one of the most docile and friendly creatures out there. There would only be a few animals that would be added later that were bigger than these gentle giants. Obviously, the appeal could be seen right away, as their soft-spoken look and fluffiness made them perfect mascots, or at least great animals to make toys, like stuffed animals. Four of them were flown over and put in the new zone, which went without a hitch. Despite their slow nature, they did not seem the least bit stressed out by being so near all the visitors and the busy shopping streets. Their perception of the world around them just was focused on eating, sleeping, and relaxing. The company of the three others of the same species made it to where they weren't lonely, and all four showed great comfort with their new home. Normally, they would use their long claws not to defend themselves, but to stand up against or climb up larger trees to get at the fruits, berries, and nuts higher up. Since they would be fed through a feeder here, they did not need to use that feature though. Some were afraid that they might peek over the fences, which they could do easily, but never with the intent of something malicious. As expected, they were a huge hit with a younger audience yet again, and those stuffed Megatherium animals were a big success as well. And thus, the park now had two different inhabitants, and people flew over from all across the world to get a glimpse of both these creatures that had never been on display before. Yet for the third animal, the higher-ups wanted something a bit more spectacular, or at least famous. Though what they had planned next wasn't necessarily spectacular in terms of size, because it was quite small in comparison, but it was definitely one of the most famous ancient mammals to have ever roamed the earth, and they could not wait to introduce the public to these magnificent beasts. They would introduce the world to the Smilodon, more commonly known as the Sabertooth tiger.